Hi there, and welcome to the Startup Tips Podcast. Your hosts, Scott and Nathan, are here to help you navigate the waters of entrepreneurship and startup success. Starting a business is hard. Scott and Nathan know it because they have been there. They want to use their knowledge, experience, and mistakes to help struggling tech enthusiasts get their businesses off the ground. They will cover everything from developing a business idea to building your team and launching an MVP. They will go broad and they will get technical to give you essential tips to get you on your way to creating a successful startup. Let's get started. Here are Scott and Nathan.
Awesome, and we're back. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good, Nathan. No more skeleton behind me.
Oh, you caught me. I
Yeah, I knew you were going to say something.
Too quick. Come on. You got an open window, it seems like, or sliding glass door.
Sliding glass, yeah.
You got a surfboard, so no more skeleton on the toilet,
Nope.
But you got a surfboard.
Nice plant skeletons in the bathroom appropriately.
Yeah, very appropriate. So I take it you moved?
Yeah, but the next building over, so not too far.
Not too far. Did you actually move your own stuff, or did you pay for somebody to move your stuff?
I moved my own stuff, and then I paid friends in food and alcohol to move the rest.
Very nice. What kind of booze did these friends get? See how well you treated them. Were they good friends or? Yeah,
they're good friends. You know who your friends are when 15 people RSVP to a moving party and 3 show up.
Did you disown all the others, the other 12?
I'm pissed.
Okay. Or are they getting the Bud Light stuff next time you're buying?
No, they're not getting anything.
No. Water, tap water.
Yeah, tap water.
All right. Well, glad you're settled in. It looks good.
Thanks.
And again, for those who are just listening and not watching this on YouTube, Scott moved. So we've got a new background to go look at. Mine hasn't changed, as you can see. I still have the island of Bora Bora behind me here.
Did you take that picture?
Fanny did. My wife did.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, that was for one of our honeymoons. I was about to say, it's not like we had several honeymoons, but it was like one step of this very long honeymoon.
How long was the honeymoon?
12 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a different story. That's a big tangent if we start going down that one right now. But
let's take that.
Let's bring it back. Scott.
Sorry.
What are we talking about today? Last time we spoke about kind of administrative and like productivity tools that we liked to use just starting up our company, I guess, or our ideas, our projects when we work either together, you and I, or just together with anyone else, right? What's a good follow-up to that?
Developer tools.
Oh, the nerd tools.
I
love
think that's
it.
a good place. Yeah, I think that's a good place to go.
Very cool.
We'll change it. If you're a non-technical entrepreneur, this might not be the podcast for you, but I think it's interesting just listening to the tools you need to be a developer.
I think there's also a high chance that if you do want to launch a technology product, right, totally, that you will either touch with these tools yourself or work with people that do. So just having that awareness.
That's a great point. So I'm going to have you guide this a little bit. Where do you want to start?
Well, I'm curious because, I've been doing more, people management in the technology space more recently in my more recent years, right? So more around, growing teams, building teams and all of that. Although, part of that is also kind of establishing, looking at, bettering, changing, auditing processes and tooling for our companies and teams, right? So that's just a long way to say that I haven't been as active developer as you have probably for a few years. I still know enough to be dangerous, but
like a ninja.
So I was going to kind of flip it back to you and see what you have in your tool belt. Because I have a few, but I don't think Dreamweaver is really a thing anymore.
Last time I heard that word, I was in Excel spreadsheet class in college.
Microsoft Access, no? The database software from
Oh yeah,
Microsoft.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
was
yeah, it
dreaming.
might have been that. They integrated the two
Okay.
tools. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think when you talk about developer tools, a lot of it comes down to what you were saying with productivity. So I think so there's a few must-haves for a text editor or something that you write code in. I really like Microsoft Visual Studio Code. I think their integrations with Git is really great. Git, GitHub, GitLab, any sort of version control system, definitely at the top of the list.
So what do you use Visual Studio for? Visual Studio Code, sorry, for, do you use it for everything?
Actual development, so writing
Okay.
code. They have a built-in terminal, so it's like an IDE, and then they have built-in version control as well. So like you can see the changes you're making in real time before you push to GitHub or some other version control system.
Believe it or not, that is one of the tools that I still use quite a bit, Visual Studio Code. I like it a lot just for basic, I guess, for my usage, right? What I like about it is that it can really open pretty much any file format out there, more or less. And then it has all these very, very rich extensions and like an app store for extensions to Visual Studio Code for whatever your programming language is, whatever your deployment environment is, whatever your testing frameworks are, whatever it may be, that just makes it very flexible to customize to your exact needs and setup. So I like that a lot. I also like the fact that it's you can pull in any kind of text-based file and it will render it well without a lot of the fluff that other tools will add. I was actually thinking, I was curious because I didn't know what you were going to answer and you said Visual Studio Code, but what's your take on the whole, like a developer IDE, so like a developer tool, developer environment, like I guess Visual Studio Code is, versus your more traditionalists in the terminal or the console, your VI, your Vim group?
I'm a weird person to ask. Yeah, I don't use Visual Studio Code's like IDE terminal. I just don't like it. I use local terminal on my on my computer, and I'll use Vim to edit files ad hoc and like do some stuff in Git. So I'm more a hybrid approach. But I think it's whatever you're most. Sorry, go ahead.
What are the things that you do? Because you mentioned Git, you mentioned Visual Studio Code integrating very well with Git, but then you also just said you do some Git operations in Vim. What do you use one or the other for then?
It depends on my process. So like Visual Studio Code, I'll see diffs of like, oh, you changed this line. But then in the terminal, when I'm merging branches, rebasing, amending commits, doing commit messages and stuff, then I'll use Vim to like edit things really quickly, or I'll open a file on my terminal if I'm already in there and then edit the file. So it just depends where I'm hanging out. Like I won't go, because I do enjoy using the terminal on my computer. It's just what I'm used to. There's no real reason for it. But then once I'm kind of in the flow of my domain, then I'll just stay there for a bit. And so if it's like, oh, I need to amend this commit, I'm in the terminal, I'll use Vim, and I'll just like either squash rebase or I don't know, do something like that. So I go back and forth. I like learning Vim too. It's kind of fun.
Actually, similar tangent, I guess, but I'm curious what your take is on like the Git clients that exist out there, the Git apps, right? So GitHub has one, there's a bunch of others, right? But using one of those versus like a plugin in Visual Studio Code or the command line, in terminal directly. I'm curious what your take on that is.
I get really scared about not having control. Like using a Git client, I've used Git clients in the past and they freak me out. just like you hit a button and it like rebases interactive for you. Like, I feel like you don't have as much flexibility, and if something goes wrong, you're in pretty deep trouble just because you don't know what's actually being executed at that level. I know people love them. I just don't like I don't like doing it. I like doing it old school. So yeah, that's how do you feel about it?
Well, it's interesting because I'm more of a visual person. So I've typically, just generally speaking, always preferred using the native apps, either, Mac OS, iOS, whatever it may be, not just for Git, right? But in general, always prefer like the native experiences and apps that these companies, build and provide, because typically they're done by the company for their customers. So they're studied and developed and designed very well. For whatever reason, I think very similar to what you're saying, the Git applications and clients, I was never able to adopt or use, just because, like you said, I think I just didn't understand what they did, right? And like you said, it got scared. Whereas like if I went through this normal, like this checklist, like protocol, like step by step of what I want to do with my local code base, to get it merged, pushed, rebased, whatever. If I did it manually, I knew exactly what was happening and I could stop it and monitor it step by step. Whereas, like you said, in these clients, sometimes like, yeah, there's a merge button or a rebase button, and then you hit that and no idea what's happening, right?
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you have an end result.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's my general philosophy with stuff that's abstracted too far from your control. Makes me a little cautious and like pessimistic about, yeah, it's cool, but also like, will I be in deep trouble if I have problems, and how much do I need to relearn how something is done? So
yeah. What else do you use like in your day-to-day? So Visual Studio Code definitely, and associated Git plugins or command line stuff, but what's some other tools that you use typically?
Terminal, I mean, obviously Git. What else do I use? Like, so then you were talking about how you're more into people management and assessing process productivity and stuff like that. I think that's a huge thing for developers as well. So tools like linting tools, where you have a computer there are community decided best practices, and then a script is run and analyzes your code and then fixes it for you, so that teams don't churn on things that aren't so important. Spend a lot of time dealing with linting, so that increases productivity, best practices, team collaboration. I think every developer should use a linter, and if you don't, I think you should read the linting documentation of your domain and learn why those things are important. I think that's a really good way to level up and improve your engineering.
I guess I'll just remain blurry. I'm not sure why my camera lost me, but thanks for that, Scott. I'm actually curious, similar to the Git thing, so I would agree that linting critically important just for keeping kind of recommended or best practices, quality, cleanliness, just ease of or readability, I guess. So ultimately maintainability of code. So I think linting is critically important. There's a lot of tools out there today, right, in the kind of linting space that do both stylistic checks, right? They also now do more and more like, security checks, vulnerability checks, like looking at your, any third-party library that you will bring into your code base for functionality or anything like that. Look for redundant code as well, things like that, right? That's generally kind of falls into, at least for this conversation, the under the umbrella of linting. A lot of tools today and services and platforms today allow you to choose if you want some of these findings to be automatically fixed for you. For example, if you have a missing comma or semicolon, the linter can pick it up and add it for you, right? But similarly, they do the same they see you have an outdated version of some library that you use for functionality in your code base, and it has a security vulnerability. These linter tools also provide the ability to kind of automatically upgrade that library and just do that work for you to make it seamless, right? And less work for yourself. similar to the Git client question, do you use those tools and have them auto fix this stuff for you, or do you like to see them find the issues and then you go in and fix them on your own time?
So let's talk about security. Let's talk about this question in the context of security. Okay, actually, I'll answer this in multiple parts. For linting, I want them to fix. I want auto fix on for me. Those are things I don't want to think about. There's really nice in Visual Studio Code and other editors. You just like on save, you format the code. So I don't really have to think about it. So that's great, super productive. The security thing's interesting because when you're talking about package versions and version managers, there's like minor version changes, major version changes, etc. So like I haven't done this recently, but if I were to structure a team, I would want minor version non-breaking changes changed for me. And I would want all major version changes notified for me to, and then like a ticket created and then me to change, because I would be worried that a major version update breaks some dependency tree thing. And then the app goes down on deployment.
Yeah, totally.
So that's how I feel about it. It's like, I feel comfortable with, because I'm going to have to fix that anyways, right? On the minor version change, but it's just doing it for me. On the major version change, it's a little more hands-on. So I'd like to be alerted and then involved.
Some of these tools also today, they'll create a branch for you out of your version control, whatever it may be, Git, whatever. Create a branch, do the auto fix for you to automate that part. And then you can also just go in and review that.
Oh, do you use a tool for that right now for security?
So I've used a tool called Codacy, CODACY.com, Codacy, that does that. I believe there are others. I wouldn't even be surprised actually if GitHub now does this for you as an option. GitHub has gotten pretty rich in terms of kind of branch protection and linting and auto fixing and creating PRs and stuff like that for you automatically as well. So we have used that in the past some, but again, it's like you say, usually there's a higher chance that these types of changes that are not like purely stylistic linting, there's a higher chance that those changes, if they get applied automatically, like a library upgrade, will break something in your code base, right? Unless you have extremely solid and complete test coverage, which we could probably talk about at length in many other episodes to come.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that. Do you use any tools for like database access, like database clients and stuff like that, or again, are you terminal based?
Yeah, I usually go term. I mean, I mainly program on the front end, so I don't have to do too much of that. I do like the stuff I have to query for isn't super complicated. If it did get more complicated, it would be nice to have like a visual graph of the relationships of the tables. I think that would be nice. What do you use for database visualizer?
I'll use clients. There's a bunch of different clients out there depending on what your actual database is behind the scene, if it's in MySQL or Postgres or NoSQL or whatever. They all have different clients. I like clients a lot for the main reasons that like you say, and I mentioned earlier, I'm a very visual person, so having like a visual of like my database and data shape is important to me. A lot of these clients as well will automatically generate data diagrams for you, so relationships between your different data objects, right, in your data model, right? So things like that are super helpful as well. And one of my favorite features of these database clients that I use a lot is the ease of configuring and storing those configurations, as well as then switching between these configurations, so that when you're developing locally and you're troubleshooting something or whatever, you can use this client to look at your local database's data, just see what's going on there. But then if you wanted to switch because you're troubleshooting or you're finding a problem, or you're going to see if your changes went through to like a test environment, you can just switch your configuration in the client, and all of a sudden you're now connected to and getting data from like this hosted test environment or staging or production or whatever, right? You could do all of the above. And I like that a lot with these clients, because it just makes that much faster to just, you know, switch and kind of explore data around, as well as kind of, you know, more and more these clients will provide you statistics and data and around just your database queries as well. So like if you wanted to try to run, you know, a select, you know, data that matches this condition in your database, right? It could tell you, here's just overall performance trend of this, right? And here are issues or things like that. And you can do dry runs, things like that, which I find just very, very useful with most of the more modern database clients.
That's cool. That's a really good point.
What are some other things? Do you use anything else like on your day-to-day?
I mean, sometimes REST clients, but honestly, like when you come into a team and you REST clients, meaning like hit an API and then see what data you get back. But honestly, like a lot of the data that I would need to see, I can see locally. Like I can just output what's being retrieved. So there's no like API that I'm thinking about using.
Yeah, I'm a big REST client fan, actually. We use Postman a lot, use paw.cloud or paw.co, I can't remember. Actually, I like paw a lot more even than Postman. And again, it has a lot of these same features and functionalities that we were talking about for like the database application. You could do the same with these REST clients. You could kind of set up your profiles for your staging, your test, your local, different users, different variables. You can pipe, requests or responses to requests into your subsequent requests, things like that. So it automates a lot of that stuff for you. And then working in teams, what these REST clients help a lot with is just sharing profiles, configurations, secrets, versions of an API, things like that, so that you can just cut the conversation short when you're looking at stuff, together in a group context. Say, well, which version of this API are you looking at? What environment? What body? What parameters did you pass it? What do you get in response? You could just say, hey, here's what I did. Take this config, run it this way, and then it runs it with the same security credentials, the same profile, the same parameters, same body, all of that stuff. So you can compare apples to apples very quickly and easily. And I like REST clients for that a lot. I still use them quite a bit.
Cool. What else, like outside of sharing configurations, what do you think what do you use? Why are you in a REST client like on a daily basis?
I more often than not in my day-to-day, today, it's a lot of days, I use REST clients to understand how a backend or service, right, or an API works, right, to see what data is available through this API, what data isn't available through this API, what sort of shape the data is, right? So that I can have more informed decisions about, what we could then build more quickly or more easily in our clients, your mobile app or your website or whatever, when you want to start building new features or functionality, right? Often, we find ourselves in situations where a team doesn't always own the full stack, meaning they're not all in control of backend, middleware, front end, whatever. So, rather than, kind of saying this is not possible, I like to go poke around the APIs to say, okay, what does it give me? And therefore, what could I build with this? Is the information there for us to create this interface, or is it missing, or is there an alternative or whatever? I do that a lot. Then another piece where I use REST clients a lot as well for is troubleshooting like customer errors, like the customers will see something in the website, right, or the mobile app or whatever, and just something we can't reproduce, or that's just odd or whatever. Often I will go look at kind of how is the API that serves those clients behaving, just to see if the API itself is up and running, if the data that it's returning is correct or incorrect, and try to isolate where the issue is coming from.
Interesting.
And then I build automations for some of our stuff as well. So like there's a lot of, in our different businesses that I like to do is, we talked about, I don't remember if it's in a past episode, let's just say, I don't know if it was the last one or not, but talk about us using, Zapier to automate a lot of integrations between different systems. So what that affords you to do as well is you could, have Zapier integrate with some form of your API to automate some task that you're working on. So, and then kind of developing that, I would use a REST client as well.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, those are the main ones. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I think we should next time or some other time we should talk about tooling, maybe related to, where you would host and deploy your application.
Yeah,
That's a good one for another episode. Otherwise, go on for hours.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Cool.
We'll see you next week. All right. I'll talk to you next week, man. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Startup Tips Podcast. Be sure to share your comments and questions and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And tune in next time for more insight and advice from the Startup Tips Podcast.